The Hub is brought to you by Docomo Pacific Business and Leo Palace Resort, Guam.
Welcome to this week's episode of The Hub. I'm Nick Delgado. A son of Guam takes the world stage in the Netherlands, championing voices in the Pacific in a historic fight for climate justice at the Peace Palace. Human rights lawyer Julian Agin and his firm Blue Ocean Law presenting a powerful case to the International Court of Justice. Here's his speech.
Mr. President, I respectfully request that you now call Mr. Julian Agin to the podium. I thank you.
I thank Mr. Kilaway. I now give the floor to Mr. Julian Agin. You have the floor, sir.
Mr. President, Madam Vice President, members of the court. The right to self-determination is a cornerstone of the international legal order. This court has characterized self-determination as both an essential principle of contemporary international law and as a fundamental human right with a broad scope of application. Its realization is, to quote the UN Human Rights Committee, an essential condition for the effective guarantee and observance of individual human rights and for the promotion and strengthening of those rights. The right to self-determination gives rise to obligations of an erga omnes character. The right is also widely recognized as a peremptory norm of international law. Self-determination guarantees the right of all peoples to freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. It also encompasses their rights to maintain their territorial integrity and permanent sovereignty over their natural resources. Yet, the conduct responsible for climate change has already infringed on the right to self-determination for the many peoples of Melanesia. Over time and generations, the peoples of Melanesia have self-determined, developing sophisticated systems of governance, economies, cultures, and cosmologies, grounded in the intimate relationship between each people and their place. The well-established adverse effects of climate change have caused a total collapse of these self-determined ways of life. Melanesian peoples have already suffered forced dislocations from their traditional territories, loss of natural resources essential for both cultural and physical subsistence, breakdown of political systems and means of self-governance, and rupture of relationships to the cosmos. In short, they have lost nearly everything that has, since time immemorial, formed their very essence as peoples. In its written submissions, MSG has cataloged these horrors in great detail by way of testimonies collected from communities across Melanesia, including, but not limited to, the Uwara tribe of New Caledonia, the people of Veribari village in Papua New Guinea, the villagers of Vuni Dongaloa, Fiji, the people of Malaita province, Solomon Islands, and the people of Yakel village, Vanuatu. These testimonies unequivocally demonstrate that the conduct responsible for climate change has already caused grievous violations of the right to self-determination of peoples across this subregion. The same is true at the level of sovereign states. In Vanuatu, for instance, unrelenting natural disasters have flung the nation into a near constant state of emergency. The Sisyphean task of responding to climate disasters has left the country simply unable to pursue its aspirations for sustainable development and has forced the government to take on substantial debt, thereby inducing dependency. These constraints, together with the degradation and destruction of the nation's natural resources, sharply curtail Vanuatu's ability to self-govern and freely determine its economic, social, and cultural development. Worse is yet to come. Rising sea levels are projected to submerge the entire territory of certain small island states, possibly within decades. This would inhibit the sovereignty of these states and thus the right of the affected peoples to fully enjoy their self-determined political status. It would also force the dispersal of peoples from their ancestral homelands, undermining their right to exist as integral peoples within their own territory, which this court stated in its most recent advisory opinion on the occupied Palestinian territory is protected by the right to self-determination. For the peoples of Melanesia, whose very existence as peoples is fused with their ancestral territories, this would be tantamount to collective death. No participant in these proceedings has disputed these facts. However, one has argued that these harms do not implicate individual state obligations. Another has contended that the right of self-determination was not designed to address climate change. These arguments miss the point. While the right to self-determination has a clear normative core, that is, the right of peoples to determine their own fate, this does not make it a static norm. In fact, the opposite is true, as preserving that core requires the application of the norm in factual situations where that right is most at risk. Indeed, the conduct at issue in this case profoundly undermines the most core aspects of the self-determination right. All states are obligated to respect the right to self-determination by refraining from any conduct that infringes on the right. The conduct at issue in this case has caused violations of the right to self-determination, violations which were foreseeable. States engaged in this conduct have thus breached their obligations to respect the right to self-determination, triggering distinct legal consequences. Mr. President, Madam Vice President, members of the court, this matter strikes at the very heart of international law. Self-determination enjoys more liberatory heft than any other single norm of international law. Yet, the reality is that the conduct of a handful of states has caused severe, systemic, and sustained violations of this right. The legal framework is robust, but still requires your affirmation to translate principles into practice. We urge this court to reaffirm the rule of law and protect the right of all peoples to self-determination. In closing, throughout these proceedings, we have taken great care to accurately describe the peoples and cultures of Melanesia, even though we are aware that most aspects of those same cultures are difficult to translate into any of the languages officially recognized by this court. But we have done so because, as surely as these peoples deserve to live in the world on their own terms, so too do they deserve to be heard here. The peoples of Melanesia live exceptionally close to the earth and thus feel the vandalism visited upon it acutely. Moreover, theirs represents living, breathing, alternative imaginations, imaginations other than the one that has brought this planet to the brink of ecological collapse, thus ensuring they are able to live and thrive in their ancestral spaces is of the utmost importance, and not only for themselves, but for all of humanity. Mr. President, Madam Vice President, members of the court, thank you for your attention.
The Hub is brought to you by Docomo Pacific Business and Leo Palace Resort, Guam. The Hub is brought to you by Docomo Pacific Business and Leo Palace Resort, Guam.
You're watching The Hub. The inauguration for the 38th Guam legislature is right around the corner. Tonight we speak with one of the newly elected senators who will take over as chairman of the Committee on Public Safety, Sean Gumatauto.
First off, I want to thank all the viewers and electorate out there for kind of listening to these engagements on The Hub and making a decision, and Guam voted differently for a change. And that's also the approach to the committee structure for the Guam legislature. I'm very excited about that opportunity. In my new role, it's kind of doing things that, to help complement the effort For the last 4 years, I've been supporting the Center for Homeland Defense and Security in Hawaii and the region. And here's an opportunity for me to take the experiences I've been able to help with, either whether it's FEMA Region 9 or the respective states and territories inside Region 9, to bring all that preparedness, first responder types of activities I've been doing for the last 4 years, a little known factoid, but being able to bring that to bear upon this particular new role in the Guam legislature.
No, that's something that's very vital for us because tensions continue to increase in the region
Right.
and the countries that are enemies of the U.S. And so
Right.
big shoes to fill there.
Right.
But I want to focus on public safety
Sure.
because the question that's always asked whenever we meet with our elected officials is, do you feel Guam is safe?
And the answer, I believe, as a resident of Talofofo, and I would say I'm a little uneasy at night when I go to bed. And I think many people in my village in southern Guam and all throughout the island feel that same way. We know that our community is having issues. A lot of it's fueled by drug use or drug abuse and opportunity. With those things happening, it's really exacerbating the problems that we face as a community relative to crime. And so my plan is to work directly with the agencies, and it's taking a little bit different tack, Nick. It's to look at the policies that they need to be better able to do their jobs. Now, yes, we know there's perennial problems with funding. We know there's perennial problems with equipment. But the one thing that is not looked at close enough, Nick, is the policies that they need to be able to do their job better. And that's what I'm going to be spending most of my term on is trying to get with them, work with the Attorney General, and maybe looking at how we can use the lawyers of government, the government of Guam, to bear upon these agencies, help them create those policies, because we can't do it alone, and to engage the community in a better way so that we can get our community to this position or being safe that I think most of us are probably accustomed to.
Okay. So, do you feel Guam is safer?
I think that right now it's tough to say, and unfortunately it's not. And we got to do something, and we got to do it pretty quick.
Okay. What are your priorities first? Let's start with the Guam Police Department, because whenever we hear of the Guam Police Department, we're continuously talking about giving them more cars, more officers out on the beat. Is that a priority for you when it comes to GPD?
Sure, and I think that it would be silly for me to say no, it's not. But also to keep them. Now, one of the things that would be key is what can we do to keep them at GPD? Now that we've increased law enforcement salaries across the board, across all government law enforcement, they're equal. They're not set apart from one another. And so I'm going to work toward in the term to be able to, how do we identify maybe a means, either some kind of premium pay for the Guam Police Department, because they handle things that Department of Corrections officers don't handle, that the fire department doesn't handle, that you can even take it down to Port Police or the park rangers. They handle a different set of circumstances in our society, and they need to be compensated for that. I think that would be key. And I'm already working with my team looking at maybe insurance and life insurance for our law enforcement. Can it be different for law enforcement folks, especially those who are on the streets today? They risk their lives when they leave and kiss their families goodbye in the morning, and there's a strong chance they cannot come home. Obviously, in our society, we're praying that does not happen, but we need to do something to make it different for our law enforcement people that would be different than the rest of the GovGuam employee. Again, they're going into harm's way almost every day when they go to work. So looking at those types of opportunities. And how do we pay for it? We have a whole bunch of different funding sources as well. But I think for GPD, that might be the first two steps, if you will.
Different in the sense of additional pay, like hazardous pay, or
No, not at all. I mean, yes, of course they have hazard pay, but it's going to be on top of that. For saying I'm going to go to work for GPD, these police officer 1 and 2s who are on the streets will get a different pay or a boost in their pay because they're doing that role. Now, it's not reducing, in my opinion, it doesn't reduce from a policy point of view the roles of the other response agencies, the first responders. No, that's not what I'm saying. it's how do we keep people at GPD? I mean, there's attractive offers in other branches of government, okay, the
Federal even.
judiciary, the federal government, off island. And if they say, well, I just did the academy, I'm done, but they see that, it's not for me, I'm going to go do something else. And so we want to be able to keep them. And I think that's going to be the key. I mean, obviously, I think there's, there's other general orders that need to be taken care of. And I think that it's the role of the legislature to provide that support to them. Maybe it's that facilitator between them and the Attorney General to get that kind of support so that the chief can, and the rest of his team can look at those policies. And that has to be done.
The Hub is brought to you by Docomo Pacific Business and Leo Palace Resort Guam. The Hub is brought to you by Docomo Pacific Business and Leo Palace Resort Guam.
So the second biggest issue I would see under public safety is the Department of Corrections. I'm sure even during your time in news or even when you were working for the administration, overcrowding.
Right.
The headline doesn't change.
Right.
So how do you foresee addressing that from a policy level?
I mean, I'm watching what's happening currently between the Director of Corrections and the AG, and a lot of it has to do with the adjudication of crime. So what do we do? And we're going to have to find a solution sooner than later. Does it mean deportation of non-U.S. citizens in our system? Obviously, that has to be considered. Do we look at, I know they want to build a prison.
A new one, yeah.
But, I mean, with that comes at a great cost. Is that the priority of the government when the rest of the economy is in a pretty bad way, when our hospital is in a worse way, and our school system is having issues? So we definitely got to prioritize it. Or is it, is there expansion? Is there some kind of, we have to work with the judiciary? But something's got to be done, and it cannot be done in one place. It's got to be done across and with a lot of people's interaction.
Okay. I'm glad you brought up the hospital. I will ask that a little bit on down the line. But our fire department, you did bring them up. What is your priority with assisting them once in office?
Well, I was watching the recent confirmation hearing of a new fire chief, and I think that from an equipment point of view, there are ways that we can keep, in this case, ambulances on the road. We might want to consider the use of they have a flame fund to maybe use to help set that aside, and maybe use a municipal lease to keep 4 or 5 ambulances on at any given time. Because the federal funds, Nick, are going to continue to come in, and the Office of the Governor is going to say, sure, let's get another ambulance. But that only solves it to that when it gets here. And then what? 1 year, 2 years? This is an issue we were having when I was working in the governor's office. And it's just not working. And we have to look at maybe ensuring that is the technology being used by the ambulances today, are those the right ones for this community, for this roadway, for our terrain? I know there's been so many different considerations. Obviously, that's going to come at a cost.
Yeah.
But we got to keep these important life-saving equipments on the road, but doing it in a way that it's going to help the mission of GFD.
Save lives.
Absolutely. But also, if it's something that's going to be using a small business that's going to end up providing this, call it the ambulance, as part of that lease, it could be quite a pretty good deal for them and for all of us. But they got to work together. And maybe the municipal lease is one solution for this problem.
Yeah, I know they've been relying also whenever they have ambulances that are down on mutual aid with the federal partners.
Yeah, but mutual aid is only good when you can provide it too. So it's great that we have the agreement, but there's times when even the military might need our help. But then when they call on us and we can't provide, how great of a deal is that? It's not.
That's true.
So we have to do a better job as a government to provide that support to GFD, especially when it comes to these important things like the mutual aid agreements. And we need to do it with equipment that's going to stay on the road and keep people safe and get them to where they need to be, save a life.
Before moving on to other topics, Sean, I just still want to ask,
Sure.
As the incoming chair for public safety, is there anything else that you want to prioritize that the community should know?
I think right now that that's pretty much it. I think that the approach that the 38th Guam legislature is going to take is going to be different. And I'm really excited about the kind of interaction that we're going to be getting from not just the senators themselves, but it's going to be from the community. I committed to everyone, and I've been talking about it throughout the last couple months, and I'm going to do it as a lawmaker. It's just going to be a better listener, and to try to find the ways and the solutions, because we don't have all the answers. I'm not a police officer, I'm not a firefighter, I'm not a corrections officer. There's some great people that do that work, and we got to work with them, hear what their needs are, and find ways. We just can't keep saying, no, I can't do it. That's not a solution. We got to provide common sense solutions to the important issues that we face each and every day.
Emergency management is the other committee? Is that what it is?
Yes.
We recently got a first of its kind Virginia-class attack submarine. First time coming to Guam.
Right.
Before it's the Los Angeles
Class.
We see both the Air Force, the Marines doing what they can to ramp up as well their security posture for the region. How do you think that might benefit Guam whenever responding, or I guess defending what they call the tip of the spear?
Well, I think from a homeland defense point of view, I think that that by having these type of assets forward deployed is absolutely a show to our adversaries in the region that, hey, we are going to protect the Americans who live here in the U.S. territory. I'm excited for that. And I think that what I'm also more excited about is I'm hearing that the Admiral is going to try to engage more meetings with the community. And I'm hoping that our speaker will be allowed on to regular meetings with the governor, that if there's something that they're facing inside the fence that they might need help with, that they can easily say, hey, not pick up a phone, but at least say, hey, these are the issues, and present it so that the 38th Guam legislature can offer up that legislative fix. Believe it or not, Nick, there's a lot of policies out there that maybe could hamper the ability of the federal government to do its work outside the fence. And so whatever that is, sounds crazy because it's a federal asset, but we got to be able to listen and find ways to help them. And again, with the threats in China and Korea, we are all watching it, and I think that we got to provide those resources to our first responders and our law enforcement agencies to make sure that what's happening here is that we have an eyeball on it. And I think we have plenty of support. We just got to make sure that we're on top of our game, because we do not want to be caught with our, with our pants down, if you will, and not prepared. We have to keep that front and center for all of us.
The Hub is brought to you by Docomo Pacific Business and Leo Palace Resort Guam. The Hub is brought to you by Docomo Pacific Business and Leo Palace Resort Guam.
Now revisiting the topic of the hospital, the new hospital.
Okay.
Your response already says volumes, but condemning land is something that's been an issue with especially the landowners,
Yes.
and now the public is scrutinizing it itself. We asked the governor this week, do you plan to condemn more land in your final years in office? And she says she never plans to do this, but it's happening, and it's happening for this new hospital. As the incoming senator, this will be happening under your watch. What are your thoughts?
So I've said it, and I support a hospital in Tamuning. I think the amount of infrastructure improvements over the last 30 years has shown a commitment by this government that that area is vitally important to keeping our island going. Yes, the governor has chosen to put a hospital in central Guam. Now, I committed to her that, yes, if that's your choice, Governor, yeah, I'm not going to stand in the way. I'll do my best to support. How? I think policy-wise, I think we got to all look at the end of the day, the condemnation of land is not something that is taken lightly. Don't think we haven't done that in the past. Are they employing the Uniform Relocation Act to ensure that people who live there in those areas, are they being taken care of? It's not just, here's a pot of money, but you're going to have to relocate them. And that federal law is very clear, and plus you're using federal resources. And also to work with the Power and Water Authority. The sheer amount of money to put that into that area is going to be significant. Yes, it can help GPA, GWA, because they're right across the street, right? That's their main headquarters. Does it help with their in their plans, for administering utilities? It might. So there can be a synergy between the two. Yeah, I'll sit with the governor to see if that's going to work. But then also said that if we do that, then we need to work with the community of Mangilao and find ways to grow the economy in that general area. If you're going to take lands, if you're going to for roads or for hospital footprint, how does the community benefit from that in Mangilao? Are you going to add commercial centers? Are you going to allow tax breaks for those businesses that will come there and set up shop next to it? There's got to be. It just can't be a singular, view of just, okay, I'm just putting a hospital. And is that footprint going to be bigger or smaller? I think got to consider that too.
Okay. All right. All good topics and suggestions. We look forward to seeing that dialogue with you guys at the legislature and the administration in the upcoming year, especially as the community has set a high bar for you guys that are the newcomers.
Yeah, it is. I mean, but they voted for that change.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to bring all the experiences I got to bear upon this and going to give it 100%. I think that this community is not expecting me to do any less than that.
All right, Senator Leke Matato, thank you so much for your
Thanks,
time.
Nick. Thanks for the time, and thanks for allowing the hub to be a place for people to share their ideas and hopefully to get to understand the issues that face their people.
There you go. We'll see you on Inauguration Day.
Absolutely. Thank you.